Well, hello class and welcome to week 2 of BACC 635 Advanced Accounting Theory. Hope that each of you are having a great Monday and that your week is off to a great start so far. This week, as we turn our attention to week 2's content and to chapter 2 of our course textbook, we're going to be exploring together something called the conceptual framework of accounting. At this stage, most if not all of you are well aware of what the conceptual framework is, at least in terms of its existence and some of the basic foundational items and considerations that are related to the framework. But in the course of this week and the content we're going to explore, we're going to dive in a little deeper, both into some of the issues that surround how we have arrived at the current conceptual framework, as well as ongoing issues and other emergent issues related to some of the matters connected with the framework and how we utilize the conceptual framework of accounting in professional practice. In terms of the content this week, you'll first begin with identifying some of the early accounting theorists and particularly some of the ideas and the paradigms of understanding that they advanced regarding what accounting is, the various elements that compose accounting, and also in particular what accounting is really designed to do. All of us are aware as professional accountants, as those who have professional backgrounds in this discipline, that accounting is more than just crunching numbers. It's more than just putting numbers and titles on a spreadsheet. The elements that are behind those numbers, the items that those numbers and those labels represent, have an essence, a dimension of business, an element of business that they represent. An understanding of both how they're being represented and what they are is crucial to doing what we do in the profession, in the practice of accounting. The conceptual framework helps us to understand that, but it rests on the ideas and the research that was advanced by early theorists that helped lay the foundations for the broader understanding that would be developed in the latter years by the FASB. Secondly, you'll also learn to describe and to understand what the current conceptual framework is, specifically in the form of the 8 statements of financial accounting concepts, or the SFAC statements. If you had an accounting theory class during your undergraduate years of study, you should be familiar with the SFAC statements, at least in terms of the basic layout and the basic components that go into them. If not, then you'll have the opportunity to get more familiar with them as you journey through the reading and the content this week. We'll also learn to discern between principles-based and rules-based paradigms and sets of standards for accounting. We recognize that it's not really an either-or choice, it's all rules-based or all principles-based. There's a gradient, there's a spectrum, and typically for any given country of jurisdiction, their set of accounting standards, their version of what we in the United States call US GAAP, is going to fall somewhere on that spectrum, either leaning more in the direction of a rules-based approach or more in the direction of a principles-based approach. We'll talk about not only what those are and examine those definitions, but also the implications of that for professional practice. And then finally, we'll also learn to describe and to examine what international convergence means, not just what it is in terms of the definition of convergence, but more specifically some of the issues, the challenges, and the opportunities that flow out of convergence when it comes to the conceptual framework of accounting. As you dive into your assignments this week, flowing out of the content and the reading that you'll engage in, the first of those will be your weekly discussion assignment, and here you're going to have an opportunity to not only describe the conceptual framework project, but also an entity that's of great importance to us and to the profession called the EITF, or the Emerging Issues Task Force. This is a body, an auxiliary of the FASB, that helps to establish US GAAP on what I would call a tactical basis. The FASB's accounting standards updates, or its ASUs, are typically developed after years of research and study and deliberation through the due process that FASB follows. As you'll learn about in the reading and in your studies this week, the EITF is designed to deal with emergent issues on a comparatively more rapid basis. It depends on who you talk to as to whether or not you would call the EITF fast responding. That's a subjective judgment. But in terms of relative comparison, the EITF is designed to deal with issues quicker and to provide more effective, efficient guidance, at least on a fast basis, when leaders and practitioners in operation, in practice, in various contexts, need guidance to deal with new transactions, new issues and new challenges that they're trying to report on. In your week 2 case and unit assignment, you're going to examine the question of materiality. And here, we're going to examine some of the debates surrounding what materiality is, how we understand it, and how we utilize it in the course of professional practice. Materiality is essentially a question of, is something big enough to make a difference? Is this large enough to actually sway or to impact the decision or the judgment of a financial statement user? That definition certainly makes sense in a theoretical context, but when it comes to everyday practice, as you likely are already aware, materiality is fraught with difficulties and challenges. Who defines what is material? How do we define materiality from one particular accounting context to the next? Not just in terms of one business to another or one industry to another, but even when it comes to the accounting elements themselves. What's material for this particular class of assets? What's material for this particular class of liabilities? Materiality comes in various layers and with various dimensions of meaning and understanding, and so you'll have an opportunity to do some research, to dive into that a little deeper, and to evaluate some of the issues that materiality is dealing with and that we confront when we navigate questions of materiality. Finally, with regard to your week 2 ASC research assignment, this week you're going to examine the question of present value, both looking at the nature of guidance provided in the codification for present value and the use of present value as a measurement technique, and also examining research related to that, particularly finding peer-reviewed articles that give us guidance on understanding what present value is, how we calculate it, and how we can appropriately report on that in the context of a business or a given business entity. So as we dive into the content for this week, as you can see, you have some interesting concepts and some interesting applications to navigate. As always, I want to encourage you, if you have any questions in diving into this and navigating the content and the assignments, please reach out and let me know. I will be glad to help and to assist you any way that I can. You can reach me by email at jake.brock@ucumberlands.edu. With that, I want to thank each of you for taking time to listen, and I want to wish you a fantastic week ahead.